How's it going, everybody? I am back in Fallout 4. Again, I am at Coastal Cottage. This time I'm going to be doing an interesting build of the house, and so I'm actually just going to be rebuilding the house a little bit. Not necessarily rebuilding it to like its former like build the way it looks, like if it were to be actually pre-war. It's going to be mainly me trying to use the house as kind of a shell for a different kind of build, like a reconstruction of like a survival shack type of thing. Um, this is going to be where all of my settlers live besides the one person. So there are going to be a couple settlers here, uh, like several settlers here, but not quite like 20 or anything like that. This is going to be a pretty small settlement. Uh, I also have a mod that I'm going to be reviewing in this settlement. That'll be the next video that I do here. And yeah, so for this, I was just going to build a little like walkway using the warehouse stairs and the quarry like catwalks up on top of the first like floor that I built. So the first like room, like housing area. But this build, the second floor is actually going to be like a big open room for a lot of people to live. And yeah, it's going to be like a pretty decently sized build, this one. I had like 75 minutes of footage in the end of it, and a lot of it is putting down plywood pieces, like always. But I did cut out a lot of that, and I showed you like the first couple bits that I put, and then I showed you like the last couple pieces that I put. And so it's not going to be a huge portion of me just sitting there putting down plywood pieces. I tried to shorten this as much as I could without leaving out anything that's kind of too important. And so for this section of the build, I want to have a little bit of an open area to get down into the like hole down there, because there's a mod that I want to show you guys that involves that. But I'm just going to go ahead first thing and just pillar glitch this junk wall as soon as it gets on top of this rug, if it would. You need to place it on a hill. Make sure that you get it on a good hill so that it'll pick it up. But you can see right here, I just go ahead and I place this in, and I like that it clipped down a little bit to begin with. That's always nice, but mainly this is me just trying to line up the wall with the floor. And I probably could have left it a little bit farther out, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really hurt anything. And then I go grab my pillar now that it's in the right position. Get my pillar, and then go ahead and just pillar glitch it a little bit lower so that that right support is in the ground and that it's not floating or anything like that. And you can see it's like flush with the quarry catwalk and also that wall of the like original structure. And so I moved it in a little bit because I wanted it to be like look like it's built into that wall, and I wish that I had just kind of left it off a little bit. It would have looked a little bit better in my opinion. I think that it probably would have turned out a little bit better. And then on to the next section, which is just adding some posts. I just used the post in the warehouse tab as supports for this quarry catwalk so that it doesn't quite look like it's floating, and you can still access that area with these. And then to kind of make it look like they just took one big like platform walkway, I added this down here on the bottom, and so it's supported, and also it kind of just looks like they found this big huge piece someplace and somehow drug it here, and then just sat it up inside of this area. And then I used the post as well on this edge as supports to keep this lifted, and then also it still has enough room for even the settlers to walk down to the bunker. I may still do a bunker video. I might, after I do the mod, I may still build something down there, but I feel like a lot of the bunkers that people build all look the same, and I really don't know how to do it very much different, because there's not a whole lot of space to work with. So, I mean, I can try something, but I just am not like 100% confident that my idea will be that different from a lot of other people's, and I don't want to just, like regurgitate like some build that somebody else has already done something similar to or something like that. I like to do original things. And of course, I can take inspiration from people and stuff. I just don't want to recreate anything that someone else has already put out there. Um, right here, I'm just boarding up this bottom floor, just trying to make it a little bit more secure. And so you could see that I added some shack railings on the inside there. And then I'm closing off this lower half. And I do want that area to be kind of open because, like I said, I want people to be able to walk down into the bunker. And I am closing off this side because I do want it to be a room, as I said. And so one of the bigger problems with this house is that these walls are like just too short to fit the like actual height of the second floor. And you'll see right here I kind of put it down there because I thought about having a stairway down to that area, but I kind of just went ahead and decided that I would start placing the plywood pieces like out that way, and that I would figure out what to do in a little bit about filling in those gaps once I've covered up a couple of those walls. And you can see I've figured out the gap and what I needed to fill in at least. And so right here, I'm just moving these out, and then it's not really letting me place these very far out there, but I do get that right there. And then I was hoping that it would let me build a little bit farther off of that piece since that's a little bit longer, and I wanted to build outwards, like towards that back wall, like the farthest away from us, and I couldn't quite get it to work. So what I ended up doing was using these half shack walls, this half shack wall, and I used the place anywhere tool, and right here I'm just trying to place that on top of it because I thought it would let me pick it up, but it didn't. So I just moved it down onto the ground, and I used the place anywhere tool to pick it up and place it right there in between that gap of that second floor and that top of that wall. And it fits pretty well. And so to fill in the gaps above those two half walls that are facing the first build that I did for this house, I just go ahead and use these railings that were added with USO, which is pretty nice. They fit just right. They're flat across the top, which is really nice. And yeah, I think that it looks really good. And then once I get this in, I go back to placing the plywood pieces. I use this shack bridge because this thing is pretty forgiving. And then also, I can use this to kind of place a couple more pieces of plywood farther out. But what I wanted to do was fill in as many of the gaps between the wall and the second floor as I could, so that it's kind of more secure, and so I just found a different textured railing, and I used it to fill in this little gap up here. And then I went back to placing plywood pieces, and so I'll show you the next couple pieces that I placed down. I just kept moving farther and farther out, trying to get these spread across as much like area as possible. And you can see I'm trying to almost get them to like pretty much float on their own. I can fill in gaps, but just not being able to build anywhere is the problem. And I want them to be kind of at good angles and stuff too, so that that stairwell is still possible to walk up. And so right here in a second, I end up showing you what it kind of looks like after I finish placing all the plywood. And you can see this is the last piece of those plywood pieces, and it wasn't that many extra pieces that you guys missed out on, but those were the last couple. And then I went ahead and started filling in all the extra gaps between the bottom floor walls and the top floor. And then also I wanted to fill in this gap a little bit so that it was a little bit more secure from the inside, because I didn't want it to be just like wide open. It is pretty open right now, but I think that that looks better than it just being open with no top. And then also I do add extra walls here on the front, so it's not quite as open as it seemed. And apologize for it being dark right here. It gets fixed here in a second. And also, I did put in a half wall on the side of that to fill in the gap between that and this wall. And you can see it right there on the right on the stairs. You can see I put a half wall. And right now, I'm just trying to fill in as much of the second floor as possible, make sure everything looks okay. And this part is really uncut, so you can see a lot of my thought process and stuff here too. Right here, I'm just trying to get walls to kind of snap in. What I try to do a lot of the time is to not repeat textures. And so recently USO has added tons of walls to use, and that definitely helps. Um, it's been a really good update that they added, and it's been a really good time to be playing Fallout and building, just for the fact that there's so many mods out that really help you build different things than you've ever been able to build, and it's really nice. But like I was saying, this part I'm just filling in as much of the second floor as I can without using place anywhere. I try to limit my use of place anywhere. I'm using it a lot right now because the game isn't crashing as often, and people have pointed out that the more you build, the like bigger toll it takes on your console, which makes a lot of sense. My builds are pretty massive generally, and so I would say that that would make a lot of sense. Just building a lot eventually has to take a huge toll on your console, and then using a tool that glitches something or does something that you regularly aren't able to do, that has to take a huge toll on your console, take a lot of power to do that. uh, but I'm trying to limit my use of it, but I can't always, there's times that I have to use it. Like this right here, I couldn't get those pieces to go in. I may have been able to pillar glitch them in or something like that, but it just wasn't working. And so that right there, that tip, or that little trick that I did right there, if you pick up the place anywhere tool and you hit circle, it usually goes right back to the place that you picked it up last. And that's actually really a useful like mechanic, because then usually it'll pick up the same object that you had previously picked up. Sometimes if you have a lot of objects in one spot, it sometimes makes it harder to pick up that object again, but not always. Most of the time it lets you pick up that object and move it a little bit, adjust it, so that you don't have to worry about having to redo the whole thing. And right here I'm just using these half walls, like the railing types, half walls, to fill in the gaps between the second floor and the bottom, like, house floor, the one that is in the pre-war structure. And I had an idea for like a window here, and I wanted to use these shack outer wall caps on the lower half of that hole in the pre-war structure to kind of make it look like they boarded it back up. Uh, make it a little bit better looking, you know, and so I just tried to get it at good enough angles so that you can see the wooden wall behind it and then the extra wooden pieces sitting on the front. I think that that's like the perfect angle. I probably could have done better on the inside. That's why I messed around with these walls a little bit to see if I could kind of change the textures a little bit on the inside. But nothing really that I could do about that, and it's not a big deal. But right here, I just used this shack wall, like in the half wall section. It's used on the like end caps, like the balcony that I did in the last video. It's used on those walls to fill in the end caps, and it was added in the most recent update for USO, Unlock Settlement Objects. That mod is probably my favorite mod in the whole game. It adds tons of things that are super useful. And then to make it a little bit less dangerous and open and stuff, I just used a wire like mesh fence. And yeah, right here I'm just looking at what I've done so far and if there's anything else that I can do. And up here, instead of filling in the rest of this area, I just went ahead and placed some railings down just to make it a little bit more safe, you know, so nobody's like falling off into this bottom floor, because it is pretty open right now. And so I just used the place anywhere tool. I do want to mention now, before we get to the tour here in a minute or two, that I didn't record myself actually building the roof. And all I did for the roof was actually just place down a couple of roofs, you know, that would snap to the walls on top. And then with the pieces, or the gaps and stuff, you can just pillar glitch, or no, I'm sorry, not pillar glitch, but use place anywhere to actually sink other roofs into those gaps so that you can fill them in a little bit better. And then all the weird like angles and stuff like that. And then I just placed this wall here in a second. One of those retextured walls I was referring to earlier. These walls, this one right there, I placed it right there on the front. And you can see it right there. But this is the full build. It is kind of boxy, but I think that it's not that bad. It's supposed to fill the structure of like the original house. And I think that it turned out good. You can see that the front is pretty open there. I've got some Christmas lights hanging and stuff. So it's like there's a big, huge window on the front looking out across the road and out over the like coast and stuff, which is a pretty nice view. And it's just really scrappy and thrown together. I really like that look right there. And I really wish I could get rid of that semi, but it actually won't let me delete it, not even with the Scrap That Settlement mod. And right here you can see I've left this open. Somebody's actually in there right now too, so you can see that settlers will walk inside of there and use that area. And they actually do come down into the like bunker area too, so that's really nice. And so now I've got, I think, 7 settlers in this settlement, just exploring all the time, exploring all of my builds and stuff. And you can see decorated. I used a lot of like junk furniture that I just came up with on the spot in this build. So the first thing that you'll see is this shelf on the left. There is a shelf, and I just placed some wooden beams as replacers for the shelves that had fallen out. That was something that I thought was pretty interesting. And you can see that there's a pretty good view out into the settlement from that spot right there. But up inside of this area, you can see that it's pretty open, and I really like it. And there's someone actually up here. But there's beds on all sorts of weird structures and stuff, and then a huge table that I threw together. I saw this in a No Respawns video, something like that at least. I don't know if it was that exactly, but I actually put that together using USO pieces. And then I've used that bed several times before. I think I've done videos on it specifically showing people how to do it. That is just some planks with a bed over the top, and then there's just a bed back there in the corner. And I really like the way this looks. Everybody sleeps up here and stuff, and I think that this is a really cool area. I really like the way that this looks. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know if there's anything that you would like me to see or like to see me build actually in this settlement or in any other settlement. I would like to hear what you guys want to see here because I'm not entirely sure what to do. So just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.